Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our How To Corner. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to new graduates. This is part 2 of our PT graduate series, and we're going to discuss setting boundaries as being the key to your success in the workplace. I'm Dr. Will Gray. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, follow, comment on what we're actually discussing, and leave comments about questions you may have that you want us to address going forward or topics you would like for us to cover. With that being said, let's get going. Now, today's episode, this is the agenda for the talk. You can feel free to skip ahead to different parts of our talk if you want to. How can I say this? Not you listen to certain things that we're discussing, but this is kind of how we have this talk set up. We're going to talk about why boundaries matters. Also, common challenges for new PT graduates, types of boundaries, setting boundaries with a patient versus setting boundaries with your supervisor and your coworkers, and being able to say no professionally, strategies to maintain healthy boundaries, and consequences of poor boundaries. Now, when we talk about why boundaries matter, the reason boundaries matter, it protects patient safety and quality of care. When I say protects patient safety and quality of care, what I really mean is it gives you an opportunity to be able to determine how you're going to interact with the patients as well as your coworker, and then also gives you ability to be able to not overextend yourself to a point where you can prevent the burnout from happening, and then you won't have an issue with compassion fatigue, okay? Because building professional credibility and trust supports ethical and legal practice. When people know what you're willing to do and what you're not going to do, what you don't allow, what you don't deal with, what happens is that they start to, how can I say this, approach you or allow you to operate a certain way. And then that allows you to be who you actually are in the workplace. Maybe you're somebody who's a little bit more laid back. You don't like a whole lot of chaos in your day. You come in, you see your schedule, you want your schedule to stay that way. You don't want any adds to the schedule. Some people will hear me saying that and say that's not real. That's a lie. I did it the whole time I was working in the actual big box setups. People didn't really add people to my schedule. If you did, I made you take them off. So people say that's kind of crazy. No, there are other people in the clinic who are working who are probably not as efficient as you are, but guess what? They have a schedule of 6 or 7. You have a schedule of 10. Why do I need to have 11? You have to be okay with setting that boundary because you want to make sure the patients that you do have get a quality of care, as well as you're able to keep your mental game in place where you can progress patients and do what you need to do to make sure you develop them properly. Okay. Now let's go forward. Common challenges for new PT graduates. You have a desire to please patients as a new PT graduate, supervisors, and your colleagues. You want to prove yourself. I am who I say I am, right? Sometimes with that, you have what happens, or what kind of goes on, which is called imposter syndrome, where you have a fear of not being who you presented to be, and then you have a fear of saying no. You don't want to disappoint them. Now, me personally, that should go out the window as soon as you show up. What you're trying to do is help and heal your patients. You're trying to make sure you hit the markers that your supervisors set as being the actual goals achievable for you as a new grad. And then last but not least, your colleagues, you're just trying to maintain a good working relationship with them. As far as how you do it is your choice. But sometimes just being able to say no, that's not kind of how I do what I do, and as well as making sure that, hey man, I know what I know, and what I don't know I'm going to learn. So imposter syndrome don't have to be a thing if you're just honest about, hey, I'm going to get better at these things as I get better in the profession. Unclear expectations in a new workplace, that's pretty tough because you have a situation where you may have a productivity of 90%, right, which is insane. And then with that productivity, they want you to document off the clock. They want you to document that point of service. They want you to do less, get out of there at a quicker time. Like then you don't have a definitive, realistic, how can I say this, expectation of what you need to do in the workplace. And kind of the goals per month, per week, right? Now, what happens with that, you have blurred lines between being helpful and being overextended because you're kind of all over the place, which is why, as a new graduate, you have to set that boundary to start with. This is what I expect. This is what you said in the interview. This is what we're going to stick with. This is what we're rolling with. I answered all the questions before I took the job. So your questions that you answer before you take the job can't just be about the salary. It needs to be about other things. Because if not, you're going to be overextended. You're going to be in a situation where the lines get blurred. So you have to create certain types of boundaries, okay? Now, these boundaries consist of four types of boundaries: professional boundaries, time and workload boundaries, emotional boundaries, ethical and clinical boundaries. Professional boundaries simply put as this is how I'm going to operate in the building, okay? I'm not going to allow patients to call me directly. They can call me during the hours I'm at work. I'm not going to allow my boss to have microaggressions towards me when I'm doing certain things. I'm not going to allow my colleagues to pressure me into taking certain patients that I don't want to take. And then also my time and workload balance. I'm going to make sure that I balance having enough time to do what I need to do per my workload, okay? And by doing so, my burnout, can be controlled, as well as emotional boundaries. It's cool to have compassion and caring for your patients. You want that. But you also have to identify when you're the person that's always having to be the person that handle these emotional situations with patients, in the sense of it's the same situation. So sometimes you need to provide resolutions or solutions to the patients in order to be able to help them move on from their stressors, as well as with your colleagues. Sometimes emotional boundaries are different when you're working with your coworkers and with your patients. You have to identify those. And then ethical and clinical practices, just how many people I'm going to see during the time per hour and how I'm going to document and do what I'm going to do. Me personally, I'm very, 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 very straight shooter on this part, because I was only willing to see a certain amount of people, and I was only willing to handle them and do this a certain way. So me personally, I was probably a lot more aware of what I could and couldn't do, and that allowed me to be able to stay in the situation I stayed in, which is having a clear head and still be in the profession. 9 years in now. So, and I love what I do. I don't have a burnout when it comes to what I do. Now, setting boundaries with patients. Use clear, compassionate communication. Be very, very straightforward and simple. Hey, also set expectations early about attendance, goals, and communications. If patients are not showing up and doing what they're supposed to do, and then they having all these different reasons that sometimes they tend to not be realistic, then you have to make your patient understand, listen, I love to work with you. I would love to treat you. I would love to do what I can do to help you, but you're not here. I may have to move you over to one of the PTAs in the clinic who may have a lot more flexibility than me. And then, not to mention, there are some patients that are really, really, really complex that I need to treat. So I would love to treat you, but if you're not going to be here, I don't want to actually exempt them from getting some focused treatment, because you don't want to, how can I say this, come to a common ground with me. And that's okay. The patient may get upset. They may be saying that you're too this, too that, but you have to do that. And then, not to mention, when they become inappropriate with you, especially for the ladies, um, you have to redirect those inappropriate questions or behavior. You have to just redirect, and also let the people know who need to be aware. Your director most likely, and then let the front office know also. And then you need to document some level of how can I say this, documentation that protects you, because when you say no or redirect, sometimes they can try to flip it and say you did A, B, C, and D, which encourage them to do that. So you have to be very, very aware of that can happen. Okay. Now let's talk about setting boundaries with supervisors and coworkers. Ask for clarification on expectations. Literally, ask your director. If they can't give you a clarification, that means that they don't have one, and they want you to do what they tell you to do when they want you to do it. Just being honest with you. That's not a good thing. Please ask for those. If not, be willing to walk away from the job. I promise you. I repeat, I promise you, be okay with walking away from the job. There are too many available positions for a physical therapist in this country that you better find another job. Just be okay with saying, hey, I'm out. Be honest about workload and learning needs. Be honest about the fact that, hey, I'm only willing to see these amount of people. This keeps me sane. And then learning needs. Hey, if I don't know something, I'm just say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that diagnosis. Why? I'm just not. Some people don't like peds, and that's okay. Like, I'm not comfortable with a peds neurological diagnosis. You can say that out loud. People are like, well, why are you not? I'm just not. Let's find somebody who's comfortable, because they'll have certain diagnoses that come through the door. Not everyone is comfortable with doing and don't like to do. You have to figure that out early for yourself, and then advocate for reasonable productivity and mentorship. Please don't fall into this 90% productivity. and thinking that you have to see a certain amount of people and then turn around as well as meet the productivity. So I have to see 15, 20 people and be 90% productive. Yeah, that's not happening. People are going to try it, not happening. The old guard of physical therapists are going to hear me say this and they'll be like, well, see, this is what one of these young people and so on and so forth. I'm sorry that you all got out here and started seeing 4 people an hour and thought that was actually a good thing to do. And now you create a profession that is custom to that. And now the way they charge insurance and do insurance is in the way using people are losing reimbursements is because of what you did initially. It's okay. The actual PT market actually crashed back in the what was it, early '90s, I think, especially in this state, where you had a situation where everybody was in the world of home health. I'm talking about making a killing, doing minimal work, charging a whole bunch. And all of a sudden, those jobs got cut down and everybody hopped into the hospitals. And there was not many jobs in their hospitals available. Why? Because they realized that this field was doing some abusive stuff when it came to reimbursement. So this is just a situation where the younger people are having to pay for what the older people did, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that, hey, at the end of the day, we have an issue as a collective. It's just being honest. Oh, and last but not least, please get some mentorship when you first start working in the clinic environment or the hospital environment. You're going to need some guidance on how to do what you do. Hopefully, in your clinical rotations, you were able to get all those, get that type of mentorship, because usually that's where it happens. Okay. Now, saying no professionally. I'm sorry, guys. Be respectful, calm, and solution based. Yes. No. I don't think it makes sense for me to have to see that many evaluations in a day. What I will agree upon is this, though. I think that's reasonable per week with the documentation commitment that has to happen with those evaluations. Yes, and don't apologize about it. Because honestly, if you over apologize and they're going to keep poking and seeing they can find a chink in the armor to be able to get you wrapped into some things. Offer alternatives when possible. Okay. Hey, I can't do this, but I'm willing to take another patient here from a treatment standpoint. I can handle that. Try to fit it where you're in a space where you're maximizing your ability to be able to do your job. You're being very great at having a return on investment that they have in you. Because something they really care about, what you're charging, what they pay you, and the ROI on that. If you're maintaining that, it's easy for you to be able to sit here and say, I understand where I need to be. I'm there. I'm not going to go past that. And that's okay. Just keep it calm, be respectful, and be solution based. You don't have to apologize for being a grown up. You're doctor, whomever. So you can actually have an opinion about what you want to do professionally. Now, let's talk about these strategies to maintain healthy boundaries, right? Some more boundaries. Know your values and limits. Know you. You really need to know you. That's a big thing. Like, know who you are and be okay with who you are, right? Document appropriately and on time, right? You want to try to document appropriately on time. This will always be an issue and hard to do. Don't skip on documentation. Find a system that works for you and try to replicate that system. Use mentors and continue education and be able to make sure that you're able to progress patients properly, as well as being able to document properly, and then also being able to handle situations when you have difficult conversations that you have to have with your directors or with your coworkers, with your patients. It's okay. Be respectful. Don't make it more about you. Just make it about the situation and the solution that you have. Practice assertive communication. Like I said, speak directly. Be simple. Be simplistic in what you're saying, and be clear. This is what I am thinking. This is why I'm thinking it. This will allow me to set those boundaries that we discussed in the financial strain portion of our actual PT graduates conversation that we're having. We did another talk. We talked about this being assertive. Make sure communication is good to be able to help with the financial piece. Now, reflect regularly on stress and workflow. Okay. You need to make sure you're always having a moving needle, meaning that I may have to adjust some things based on how I'm feeling. I may need to take some vacation. I may have to take vacation around a certain parts of a year on purpose, every so many months on purpose, because I just need some time off to be able to recharge the battery, and that's fine. Figure out your balance. You have to have it. Figure it out. You have to have some level of balance if you're in this field. Now, last but not least, the consequences of poor boundaries. If you do not set these boundaries, you will burn out and have job dissatisfaction. And then you will be on TikTok and Instagram with these shorts saying how terrible the field is, how the reimbursement is not great, how we don't get paid a lot. You'll be out here, woe is me. I promise you, if you ask a person who's working in this field, 80% of them who have a negative feeling about it, they're burnt out. They have job dissatisfaction. They're pissed about something. They got raked over the coals. Just being honest with you. If you found somebody who's had a positive job experience and not burn out, they'll be very transparent and objective with you and say, this is what you shouldn't do to be able to get this is what you should not do so you would avoid these type of issues with burnout, and this is what you probably should do to make sure you have a great job satisfaction and be willing to take this risk and do this, because if you do not set these boundaries, you're going to have an increased risk of errors in your job and what you're doing. You're going to hurt somebody. I promise you will. Whether it's physically, emotionally, whatever, you're going to hurt somebody. And then also, you're going to strain the patient or the team relationships because your boundaries are not set where they know where to meet you at. Right? They know the expectation. Like, this is how they roll. This is what they're about. They're very to the point. They don't have no nonsense. They don't really go past this. They're not going to even have a different expectation. So at least they have a consistency of knowing that I can't come to this person for this, but if I need to come to this person, I can come to them for this. Cool. It helps you. Because if you don't do that, you will leave this profession early. There's no appreciation for people who do not value themselves and create value in the profession. You'll be out here waiting for a pat on the back, and it's be your fault because you did not set a boundary. And as a result, the respect for you in your profession leaves, and then you have to leave. So, if you ever in a situation and you're wondering why I'm tired, why I'm emotionally distressed in my job, why it's so bad, it's probably you. Whether it's the job you chose, right? The situation, the place you chose to work, the team you're on, the fact that you're not setting boundaries, whether you have a home life that's stressful, where you don't have any hobbies, you're not taking enough vacation, whatever it is, you have to look at you first. If you look at you and you can fix what you have issues with within you, right? Things I know I could be better at and do better. You're going to increase your satisfaction. And you may have to find a hobby outside of it. The beautiful thing about what I do from a job standpoint, that I have flexibility. What I do and how I do what I do, I love what I'm doing. I have flexibility. But I had to work to get this flexibility. And I was okay with that. This was in the vision. Hey, I'm going to be able to find some level of flexibility. I'm going to be able to be a owner. I'm going to be able to be a business person. I'm going to be able to actually grow things, build things, and create a situation for my family and myself that we're all happy about what's going on. We are doing great at that. And just so happen, everybody understands the boundaries. Now, if you made it to this point in the talk, thank you so much for making it to this point. We really appreciate you. If you have any questions, concerns, or issues, please, man, like send us a message on all our platforms: TikTok, YouTube, um, Instagram, Facebook. You can even hit us up at the website in order for us to be able to discuss or answer some questions within that forum also. But until then, avoid burnout, new PTs. Set your boundaries. And if you have a question, you can always call Dr. Gray. I hope you have a blessed one. I'll speak to you soon.